Welcome to the Startup Competitors Podcast, where we talk with early stage entrepreneurs to understand what information they use to inform product roadmap, strategy, and market differentiation.
Welcome to the Startup Competitors Podcast. Today we have the founders of Naptown Fitness. We have Peter Brasovan and we have Jared Byczko. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right. Let's start with a quick intro to Naptown and what you guys do.
So we're Naptown Fitness. We've been around for 7 years here in Indianapolis, mostly downtown. About 4 years ago, we moved up to a second location here in South Broad Ripple. We started off as just CrossFit Naptown, and over the 7 years, we've evolved our brand to now include a CrossFit brand, a yoga brand called Practice Indie. We have a full-time barbell program. We have kids programs. We have multiple locations, as said, and we have about 600 plus members at this point.
Awesome. You guys also do a thing called Swift, which I wasn't familiar with until I met you guys. Is Swift your thing, or is that something that is out in the fitness community that I just was completely naive to?
No, you're spot on. So Swift was a brand that we created. Sweat with Indie for Time is the acronym that we decided to go with. So within the CrossFit industry, for those who aren't familiar, CrossFit's this big global brand that's taken over since 2002. It's really kind of changed the functional fitness setting of the gym space. And what we decided to do was to kind of branch off a little bit. And Peter said to make ourselves a little bit bigger, a little bit more dynamic than just a typical CrossFit space. We wanted to bring in more individuals to build out more of like a fit program, what they used to call CrossFit Light, like a boot camp class. So the idea there is to get rid of all the barbells and just work on body weight movements. And I guess the issue we had when we started CrossFit was we need to get more people through the door. If you had a bad experience at a CrossFit gym, you're likely not to go to that gym because they do CrossFit. So we were trying to find something else, that was less intimidating, one that was a little bit quicker. So our Swift classes are 45 minutes, and something also that was a little bit more affordable. So it's a little bit cheaper because it is a 45-minute class. It's not as technically demanding as our CrossFit classes. So that's kind of where the Swift brand was born. And I think the best move we made from the get-go was just branding it into something that gave us an identity rather than just having a CrossFit Light class or a boot camp class or, some of the other names you have out there.
Got it. Cool. Awesome. Peter, you already said 600 members, right?
Yep.
Any other kind of top level metrics for somebody who's listening to this might not be familiar with you, wants to know where you are on kind of the entrepreneurship journey, and any other kind of numbers you can share, and maybe a little bit about vision in terms of where you guys are going and what you would like to grow Naptown Fitness to be.
Yeah, so we started as just two owners, Jared and myself, with an idea that we wanted to be entrepreneurs, not really knowing where. And when Jared met my wife, then girlfriend Shannon, they decided that opening a CrossFit gym seemed like a good opportunity, a good move for all of us. And as we've grown as business people, that's where Jared and I's passion lied. We've opened more brands that we just talked about. And one of Jared's early visions of the brand was that he wanted an opportunity to not only a living for ourselves, but have an opportunity to have employees and have someone else rely on our business for their income and their livelihood. And so it's something that we're always in the background working on. So although we have 600 members now, there's no way we could make that happen on a daily basis without all of our staff and all of the people around us that are helping us. So on our last few payrolls, we've been over 40 staff members deep in helping us make this whole thing happen. Wow. Which is really amazing. I think that's one of our most proud metrics that we could say. We love having 600 members. We wouldn't be where we are without all of those people and making an impact in Indiana. But it's the people around us that are really making this happen on a daily basis. On I think Mondays and Tuesdays are our busiest days. We have 35 classes in hall throughout the city of Indianapolis. And I say throughout the city because we actually go to businesses. We're in quite a few corporations. Our CrossFit Kids director, Hillary, she's in 8 different schools throughout the week and before school and after school programs. So our reach throughout the community is not just people that are looking for fitness within Indianapolis. We're trying to get to the bottom line or to the top line from kids in schools to people in corporations and leaving really no excuse for a busy-minded person not to be able to get access to quality fitness here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I would say, from an industry perspective, we are in the upper level of functional fitness gyms. So I say that in the sense of, we're we're not the mom and pop starting a CrossFit gym out of a garage or, running CrossFit out of a garage. We're now to the point where we treat this as a profession, as a business. And, so when you come down to functional fitness, Peter says the number 600 members, although that may not seem like a lot to a Planet Fitness or LA Fitness. Those are 600 people that we know the names of, or our staff knows the names of, that we have connections with. In our logo, you see a word Naptown, then you see nutrition, fitness, health, and then community. Community is entirely what our business is driven on. I know community can kind of be a vague word from time to time in the business world, but we really, really strive on knowing every person's name, which has helped us quite a bit as well.
So you guys are a non-traditional, if we can use the word traditional after only 50 episodes, guest to the Startup Competitors podcast. You're the first non-tech company and or investor on the podcast. And there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to do that. And thank you guys for being available. One is, I know you guys personally because I've trained with both of you and know a lot of your staff, especially here in the Broad Ripple location. And then two, know you guys professionally because you lease space in our building. And when I first got to know you guys, when you acquired the gym here in Broad Ripple, and we were talking through lease negotiations and what the takeover looked like and stuff like that, I was super impressed with just the business savvy of like understanding cash flow and understanding what you needed to see in the lease to make the deal work. And obviously I've stayed in touch with you guys professionally through that as you've looked at other space downtown and stuff like that, and just talking anecdotally around what those have looked like. And I've just been super impressed with you. Like, you guys aren't meatheads, right? like you are very much entrepreneurs who think deeply about your business, and I think have a great vision for how to grow it and what that looks like. And so I wanted to talk to you about that first and foremost. And then two, I think there's another unique thing that you guys have in that you have a very high functioning partnership. And I think, after we've worked with or been pretty closely exposed to probably over 300 startups here at Developer Town now in the last 7 or 8 years. And many of those are partnerships where you have a co-founder situation with anywhere from 2 to, I think the most we've had is 4 co-founders in a business that we've seen. And many of those end very poorly. Or even if they do continue, they're very dysfunctional in specific ways. And I think you guys have, when I think of like, at least in my personal relationships, the people that I know who have great partnerships, I think of you guys. I think of Scott and Andy at Perk. I think of, myself and Michael. There's a number of well-functioning partnerships that I see. And I was hoping to also get you guys to talk a little bit about that and what makes that work, because I do think there are a lot of lessons in there that people listening to this can pull out of it, especially if they're in a partnership, which a lot of tech companies are co-founders situations. So maybe to start, I'd love to dive into the business side of things a little bit more. Talk a little bit about like as you guys thought about launching the Naptown fitness brand in Indianapolis, and you continue to carve out your space. When you look at competition in the market, which is everything from mega gyms to other CrossFit gyms to, and everything in between, boot camps, all that stuff, like, how do you guys think about segmenting the space, and how do you think about where you live in that market? And then the most interesting piece of that would then be, how do you leverage that to drive strategy for what we're going to do next? Like, how does that drive? We need to be working with schools. We need to be working with corporate clients. Talk a little bit about that and how you guys came to those conclusions.
For sure. First of all, thank you for saying we're not meatheads, which I truly appreciate. That's actually one of one of the things that burns me the most is when we'll go to like a networking event, or we'll go somewhere as a business casual event or whatever it is. And, people are like, oh, what do you do for a living? It's like, well, I run, a wellness center, fitness center, however I want to approach that person.
You can't use the word gym.
I know. As soon as you say gym,
is that not a thing? You can't do that?
As soon as you say gym, you're already kind of looked down like, oh yeah, you run a gym. Oh, big deal. And it's like, to your point, we both graduated Kelly School of Business here at IUPUI and have business degrees. So we kind of did it the complete opposite way, in which Peter nor I had a kinesiology, exercise science degree, nothing in the physical space. We had business degrees, and I triple majored. I think he triple majored as well. And we took the whole approach of run it from a business, and then we've learned the fitness side. We both played sports our whole life, Division I soccer. So we were athletes our whole life. So we had that part figured out. I was just figuring out, the actual practical part of the business. But kind of talking about our competition and the space that we're in is, one of the things I think very early on, I can maybe credit Peter to teaching me this, or just like putting out there, was not so much focusing on what everyone else was doing in our space, but focusing more on our four walls. And so when we first opened up, it was really about just focusing on the four walls in which our building was in, and then making that the best we can possibly make it. Because I think sometimes within, and whether it's a tech business or service industry, whatever it is, I think we get too caught up with what everyone else is doing. And then we lose focus on what we need to be doing, our core competencies. Like, what are we the best at? And how do we continue to improve at this to then, make others chase after us, rather than us kind of chasing someone else's tail, figuring out like, oh, well, their price is $10 lower, we should go a little bit lower. Don't focus on that. Focus on what we're doing. So I think that was super important from us in the beginning. And, kind of give the landscape a little bit. Back in 2011 when we opened, Peter and I were both living up in Chicagoland. We were taking the megabus back and forth between Chicago to Indianapolis to kind of check out what was going on here in the scene of Indianapolis from a fitness perspective.
I got to unpack that for a second. So you went to school at IUPUI.
Correct.
And then you immediately moved to Chicago?
No. So we actually worked for PlayStation 3 for a little while as well, and did traveling, guerrilla marketing, so experiential marketing with a marketing firm in Chicago.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So it's one of the things that happened in life. So I graduated in December 2007. I think you were
May of 2008.
May of 2008. So I graduated in December 2007, immediately moved to Chicago, worked for a logistics company, inside sales, in a cubicle, hated life for 9 months, learned everything I didn't want to do in life, in a sense of working for a big firm in Chicago. Loved the city. And then he was working, ended up moving to Chicago as well. And he found a job with this marketing company, which I then, after he did it for a year and talked about how
I was his boss for 6 months, 8 months. I got him the first job on the road with PlayStation.
Fantastic.
So that's how we've been very fortunate to unpack it. I'm happy this is your first 4-hour episode, by the way. I'm not having that much time. We've known each other since we were 5 years old. And each step of our lives, we've been able to be on different sports teams or the same sports teams. And we've been able to kind of guide each other. Sometimes I'd be better at a certain thing, then he'd get better at a certain thing. So I'd be better at one subject in school, he'd be better at the other subject in school. And so our whole lives, we've had this yin yang, pull push type of situation. And it's really led us on the path to where we are today. And it still is something you kind of talked about a little bit, Mike, was why we're so successful as a partnership, because we truly know each other's strengths and weaknesses inside and out. I mean, I'll know if he had a bad night of sleep just based on how he walked into somewhere. He'll know if I had a bad night of sleep based on how I walked into somewhere. It's that deep and it's that consistent that we can pick each other up at any given time. But we can also tell each other the realness of it. Like, hey, man, you're not stepping up as well as you normally do. What's going on? And so like having that much knowledge about each other makes us continue 7 years of business later, 30 years of knowing each other later. We can still thrive together in certain situations because we're willing to celebrate the wins and victories, but we're also willing to challenge each other when we're having our darkest, our hardest days. And that's a big part of where we are today. And then those jobs that we had before this in Chicago really, as Jared said, taught us what we needed to learn in life, but it also gave us the opportunity to learn how to be entrepreneurs, which is where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, people always talk about the marriage of business, right? Like, your business spouse or whatever the correct term is. And, it is interesting and it is partially true, just because you can have those candid conversations with a person. I think that's the one area that I've learned the most is just communication is vital to any relationship, whether it's with your actual spouse, whether it's with a business partner, whether it's with employees. You have to be, I'm a huge fan of radical candor, if you're familiar. So the idea of just being able to, when you have something to say and you want to say something, say it then on the spot rather than bottling it up and holding it for a future staff meeting or a future employee meeting. It's the same thing with Peter and I. If I'm not going to get too explicit with this, but if I'm pissed off at Peter, I'm going to tell him right then and there and say, hey man, like you're not pulling what you're supposed to be doing right now. Like you got to work harder. Like, he's got 2 kids and I have 0 kids right now. And, sometimes that whole family dynamic can add a struggle where, he'll take a Wednesday morning off, and he has Wednesday mornings off now to be with his family. And, that was definitely difficult and hard for my brain to kind of be wrapped around that in the beginning when we first started this business. So there's a lot of, life struggles. There's a lot of that work balance, family situation that you have to figure out as well. But as long as you're willing to have open communication and realize that at some point you might be in that same exact space that he's currently in with family, it becomes a little bit easier over time.
Talk through, I don't care which one of you kind of picks this up and runs with it. Talk through like what a crucial conversation looks like between the two of you. So let's say radical candor, you say on the spot, like, hey man, I don't think you're carrying your weight. Like that. So that's either something that you can resolve in the moment with an egoless, like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not. And that's fine. And that's good. And even that is a small thing that very few co-founders do, right? Is that kind of real-time feedback. But then let's say that leads to a deeper conversation, like, well, maybe I'm carrying my weight and it's not something we can resolve right now. So then the follow-up conversation to that, where it is going to be maybe a more difficult conversation back and forth. Like, what do you guys do to personally either to prepare for that or get your head in the right space, or like any rituals you guys have come up with that is going to create a safer space, create space for one of you to vent and the other one's going to be okay with that? Or and I'm particularly struggling with articulating this because I'm trying to think through what Mike and I have developed over the years. And in some cases there are patterns. Like, it turns out I have a pattern of behavior that I had no idea until fairly recently. Anytime Mike says anything to me that's a new idea, I hate it. I just absolutely hate it.
I think my wife feels that way about me.
Yeah. And literally 24 hours later, I could walk in and be like, hey man, I had this idea last night, and basically say back to him his idea. And I love it now, right? I just, whatever it is, like the second he introduces a new idea, there could be nothing I want to hear less than that. And now we both know that this is a pattern of behavior. 4 years ago, it would have led to probably a pretty tense back and forth and both of us walking away frustrated. And now it's like, hey, if I'm Mike now, it's like, hey, I'm going to introduce this idea to you. Just think about that. Yeah. We'll talk tomorrow. Right. Then just literally just walk away. Right. And it's perfect. It's exactly what I need. I process it. And then we show up the next day and it's like, yeah, man, I've been giving that a lot of thought. I think there's a lot to that. How do we move forward with it? And so I'm trying to think of in my own relationship, what are some of the rituals that we've come up with that work for us for whatever reason? Have you guys found any of those same things that allow you to have, whether it's weird pathologies that you've recognized in one another or in the relationships that allow you guys to resolve things faster now than when you think back to 6 years ago in the early days of the business you really struggled with?
Yeah, it's a super packed question.
Yeah.
And I'll try my best to keep the surface level stuff because I think he'll build on everything I say here. There's about 2 to 5 bullet points in my mind that stood out as soon as you said that. One, going back to when we first opened, we've always had a mentor. If you don't have a mentor in your business, and ideally, we just learned this from our now mentor, because we still have a different one, is we really need to be talking to maybe the same person or a different person as a mentor at any given time, because that is going to happen where we both don't see eye to eye and we need to talk to somebody else. So the biggest first thing I can say is always have a mentor from day one before you open your doors. And we had that in the previous owner of CrossFit Chicago. He had been open for a long time and he helped us get the door open. And one of the bullet point number 2 in my mind was he had us read the E-Myth. And there's plenty of books out there at this point. But one of the things that stood out from E-Myth to me was you have to be black and white and super clear about what your roles are going to be from day one. If it's expected that both of us are going to clean a dirty toilet on day one when we're entrepreneurs, because we're brick and mortar, unlike many of the tech companies.
Oh, we still clean toilets.
Okay. But if it's expected that we're both going to do it, then the realization is neither of us are going to do it. So early on, and I don't know if Jared somehow made me do this, but it was expected that I usually would clean toilets. I handled most of the maintenance things, but I leaned on him for most of the marketing things. And so because we read the E-Myth, we were very black and white, and we had it we've always and continue to have it on our whiteboard, that whole idea of putting your name in every single bucket of your business. And now those names are almost somebody else and not Jared and I. but it's always been that black and white. So when we didn't see eye to eye at the beginning, it was very easy for us to look at that board and say, that is your expectation. So rather than bickering about it or feuding about it, it was like, my expectation is this, your expectation is that. And if we didn't have that from the beginning, and that's what Ruby taught us. And then our wives come into play huge. I mean, they were probably our second, third mentors. Like Shannon, my wife, has always challenged me, super spiritual, super yogi. She's worked for Salesforce. She's worked for Lululemon. So she has backgrounds from both the biggest companies, some of the biggest companies in the world. And now she's an entrepreneur in her own right in yoga and what she's doing. And she challenges both of us all the time to the point that I'm like, how the hell did she just flip us upside down like that? But it does it. And then when Jared met his now wife, Caitlin, she also comes in with a different mindset. So we use both of them for mentors or people that would be our
sounding board.
So if we got frustrated with each other, right, I'd go straight to Shannon. Man, Jared's really frustrating me. How should I talk to him about this situation? And then I assume he does the same with Caitlin. And then current day, we have plenty of staff members, and we have the way we have meetings and the way we approach things. And we use another mentor group now. And one of the things we truly try to do is live our perfect day. And if something comes up that's kind of causing a rift between us, it's like, okay, if I take on that extra personal training client, does that mean I'm doing less business inside my business? And would that deter me from living my perfect day? And if I'm not living my perfect day, then I'm probably going to frustrate the shit out of Jared. So that's going to derail his perfect day. And he's like, man, because he's not doing what I expect of him, now I have to pick up the slack. So
unpack that for me real quick. What does it mean to live your perfect day?
I don't know yet, but we use an awesome mentor group called Two Brain Business. And that's just one of the big exercises they do. And about 2 or 3 times a year, you should really revisit. And as Jared said, I have kids. You should revisit what you think your perfect day consists of. What time am I going to wake up? Am I going to go work out before my kids wake up? Will I eat the same thing for breakfast? Will I read a book? Will I not touch my phone until 9 o'clock in the morning? Am I an early morning email? So I have to revisit that. And since we started this exercise about 2 years ago, I think I've had about 2 or 3 perfect days at that specific segment of my life. And I remember the first time it happened, I got done with the day and it was about 9 o'clock. I sat down and I was talking to my wife. I was like, I just lived my perfect day. Every single thing that I could imagine with my life happened. And it's something that we challenge all of our staff members to do, because if we're not providing them the tools to live their perfect day, everything. I mean, if a person, we expect them to coach at 5:30 in the morning, but they're a better night person, why am I trying to force them into that? Because we're going to get a B- result out of them when we know they're an A+ employee.
So does everybody share their perfect day in the company? So like, do you guys know Hudson's perfect day? Does he know yours? Like,
we as owners, as supervisors, as leaders, we do, because we have these conversations. This is part of like our one-on-one reviews. This is part of we have monthly sit downs with all of our full-time staff members, and we do not force them. We do ask them to revisit this, like you said, about every 6 months or so. So yes, we do, but we don't necessarily share it with the entire. So like, employee A doesn't know employee B's perfect day unless they want to share it. And, it's one of those situations where I also do this, where I rewrite it to where it's like, 6 a.m. I wake up, 6:30 I'm drinking my coffee, 7 a.m. I'm, going to the gym for the 7 a.m. class, and like really break it down hour by hour. And it's crazy how much it changes in just 3 months time of, what's going on in your life and like what you consider to be perfect for you.
That's super interesting. All right. Sorry. Thanks for that diversion. I think I cut you off on like bullet point number 2. So,
although that's fine. I mean, that's really over the last 7 years is always have a mentor, use your family, use your spouse if you can as your sounding board, have a clear expectations of what my roles are and his roles are. Those have evolved greatly. I mean, it's very clear that I'm the CFO anymore, and any marketing stuff, I don't know how to access half of our online marketing tools. And he knows how to do all of that. So it's like, we have to be very clear on that. And I think that's all, having all those expectations throughout the years have really led us to be as successful as we are.
Yeah. And coming back to, the idea of how do we, have these difficult conversations, I don't think we have I don't think we have an exact game plan, but I think we have been able to build off each other where for the most part, when something needs to be said, it's said. We just do it then at the spot. I mean, I think sometimes Peter and I will preface things and be like, hey man, I need to talk to you about, this subject. And then when we have some time together, we'll sit down and actually do that. But I think most often what I think is interesting from our partnership relationship is the fact that like, it'll just be a quick phone call and I'll call him, and all of a sudden 40 minutes later, I'm like, dang, I wasn't expecting that to be a 40-minute phone call. I thought I was just calling to see like what happened at the gym today or what happened at the office or whatever the case may be. And so those are the times when we really kind of hash things out most often, and, to kind of even open up a little bit more and be super vulnerable. I think one of the challenges that we've had from this level is the fact that we've been best friends since we were 6 years old. and all of our friends are friends. In fact, a lot of our employees are friends. So it even adds in more of a dynamic because a lot of people always say, don't go into business with friends. Well, another Eric Nolan, one of our managers at our downtown space, we've known since we were 8 years old as well. And so it's one of those things where people are like, how is that even possible? We just have a weird relationship that we developed. But, to kind of bring it back full circle is the fact that Peter's wife, Shannon, works with us full time. And she's our chief yoga officer. And that becomes challenging at times because now they have a relationship where it's boss, wife. And then I have a relationship where it's like boss, I consider my sister. And, so then, when we have disagreements, when we have issues, how do we then hash that out? And that's something we're currently learning to the point where we finally decided to get Shannon a business mentor herself, because we couldn't have the tough conversations with her. We could try to have the tough conversations, but it was difficult because then he would have to go home and then you have to,
and the conversation might not end.
And it didn't end, and it became about family. It became about business. And before you know it, it's all mixing together. And we from an outsider perspective, seeing the relationship was like, we can't have that. We need to figure out a way to fix this. And I think one of the things that we came down to was, hiring her a business mentor, just like we've had over the last, 7 years, more specifically the last 2 years, we've been paying someone to be a mentor for us to help us guide us. And it's been amazing for us. And we'll see. I think it just started.
It's supposed to start this week. Yeah.
Started yesterday for her. So we'll see how it goes.
How did the two of you choose your current mentor? Unpack that process for me a little bit. Like, how did you talk about what you were looking for? How did you find them? Do you remember that process?
Yes. For us, I mean, in our industry, we're a multi-gym business. So within CrossFit and just kind of the functional fitness space, you have, like I said, you have some super micro gyms that might have 50 members that, there's one owner. You might have a gym that has 4 or 5 different locations. For us, we had 2 locations at that time, kind of like 2.5 locations. We don't have to explain that too much, but we found within the mentorship group that we use, we found a gentleman who runs 2 gyms as well. So for us, we thought it was very important to see, because the challenges we face are completely different than someone else who has 50 members and a 2,000 square foot versus us who have, we've got 4 buildings and I don't even know, 27,000 square feet total amongst those 4 buildings. So a lot of different challenges we face within that. One of the buildings we actually own downtown. So now we're landlords of our own building and have tenants there as well. So those cause issues, right? So I think in the beginning, we were working with this gentleman. His name's Brian Alexander out of Niles, Illinois. And the way we always kind of equate it is we had a really big ship. We had a lot of members. We had a lot of revenue coming in for what we do. But the boat was going in the wrong direction. What he helped us do was get that boat and steer it in the right direction so everyone's on the same page. So, coming back to roles and responsibilities is one of the first modules. Outside the perfect days, typically the first module they'll send you through. And then the second one is roles and responsibilities. So then expectations. So every employee, including yourselves, know what they're supposed to do. And that was kind of how they guide you through this mentorship program. And then it allowed us to create a business that was sustainable and a business that had systems and processes in it, which we kind of had, but not as much as we thought we did. And so now we have a business to where I can hand you a book and say, hey, Mike, go run our business, where 2.5 years ago, that wasn't happening.
I think mentorship is something that's always been in our blood too. When you're a kid growing up, and you might not realize it, if you play any sports or if you're pretty into school and you look up to some of your teachers, or you play sports and you look up to your coaches, if they're doing their job right, that's your first mentor. And it was, or some of our coaches were some of our first mentors, if they knew it or not. So then Rudy, our first CrossFit coach out of Chicago, was our second mentor. Some people know they're our mentors. We tell them. Some people have just become such good friends and confidants. You, Mike, are one of our mentors. We talk about it. Like, we look up to Mike for some of what he's doing at Developer Town. And so sometimes you're our great friend. Sometimes you're a mentor. Chris Baggett's a great friend of ours. Is someone that he was just a great member. And we didn't realize how valuable it was to have him as a member. And we've taken him out to coffee at least once or twice a year for the last 4 years. And so some mentors we pay for in Two Brain Business and some of that. And some of them just become people that we trust in so many ways, that here in Indianapolis, that we look up to them in the environment that we have. Because you have to understand your landscape. And so the people in Two Brain, they don't know the Indianapolis landscape as much as our close friends or mentors here,
Right.
but they understand the gym landscape. So having people in different industries is very important.
This episode is brought to you by Full Stack PEO. Most founders start companies because they figured out a better way to solve a problem or serve a need, not because they love tracking payroll, filling out compliance forms, and explaining employee benefits packages. And yet, all that stuff still has to be done. That's why there's Full Stack PEO. Full Stack PEO specializes in turnkey HR for emerging companies, not just those core services, but advice and expertise that help founders maximize employee potential. Curious? Find out more at fullstackpeo.com.
All right. So switch gears back to differentiation in the market. Talk a little bit about the next 24 months of Naptown. What does growth look like? Or is it we just want to successfully run our current locations, continue to sustain that business? Or is it, no, here's the plan for world domination. We can break it down for you. This is what it looks like.
Yeah, so all good questions because we're actually having these conversations pretty regularly right now. So for us, one of the good things that we've done is we've always kind of stayed ahead of the trend. And, having our multiple programs and our multiple offerings has already put us ahead of a lot of the other gyms that are within the CrossFit space or functional fitness space. One thing that we're really, really focused on right now and have put a lot behind is our nutrition program. And so Naptown Nutrition is going to be one of our areas of growth for the future, not even the next, couple months, but for the future as a whole. We really believe that nutrition is the base of fitness, health and wellness. If you don't focus on your food intake, if you don't focus on what you're putting in your body, you're never going to see improvement. And you've probably seen this before working out and being here at the gym and so forth. Like if you don't put in the right material, you can't outwork a bad diet.
Yeah.
And it's so true in that sense. And the problem we have though is there's all these small little mom and pop shops that help with nutrition. And myself have been doing nutrition pretty regularly, pretty seriously for 8 years now. I still don't even know what works well for me. And I know what nutrition truly means. And I still don't know what the right lifestyle or diet, I hate using the word diet, but the right lifestyle should be. So how is someone randomly who's busy and has kids, how are they supposed to figure out what's supposed to work for them? So I think part of our goals is going to be educating people and really kind of taking this Naptown nutrition program that we're developing and making it more than just a space downtown, but to potentially have different, I don't want to use the word clinics, but different opportunities, different locations all around. I think, a growth opportunity from there would then be to start working with doctors and healthcare facilities and other clinics that, you have professionals within and having those individuals recommending or sending clients to us who need help because that's what we're there for ultimately. So I really think that's kind of the health space, the nutrition space is our biggest area of opportunity for the future. I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, a little bit. So everything that we have done up to this point and all the growth, we have an amazing team behind us that we've talked about multiple times. So we're really leaning hard on some of our now managers and leaders within our business group to take over the gyms and continue to grow them. And Jared and I are evolving what was CrossFit Naptown and then Naptown Fitness. And we see our next 48 months to 5 years to really evolve into Naptown Health. One of our big goals in 2019 is just to start a non-for-profit, not do too much with it yet, but we're going to start one. And if you follow CrossFit at all, and I'll let you guys do more research if you care, is CrossFit has evolved from CrossFit.com, and now they have a secondary wing. It's always been there, but CrossFitHealth.com is evolving. We've been very fortunate to meet Greg Glassman multiple times, and we actually get to go out to a CrossFit Health conference in a couple weeks. And so we're really focusing on how we as Naptown can get into the bottom level. And hopefully by 2025, we want to have an impact on the obesity epidemic in Indiana and really drive us from a bottom 10 state to a top 20 state. And we want to have a part of that. So that's our 2025 goal. We're going to start with a non-for-profit because right now we don't get a lot of lower income people or people who maybe can't make it into our gym because we are for profit. We have 40 people that rely on us for their livelihood. So we have to keep that focus there, but we need to also say, if we want to change Indianapolis, change Indiana and the landscape of people here, we need something else to help fund that. And that's where the non-for-profit comes in. That's where the nutrition comes in. And that's going to underlie what Naptown Health will evolve to. And we hope to have a lot of impact. Jared's having some national conversations with some other fitness league, fitness opportunities. So there's some really cool stuff we're working on from a higher level to bring this top down.
When you think about growing the not-for-profit, and an acceptable answer here is we're not that far yet, but as you think about growing the not-for-profit, how much of that is Naptown Fitness funding it from a portion of profits versus funding in the community, whether that's businesses or other not-for-profits who are, share the vision of reducing, whether it's reducing obesity or whatever, health goal that they're trying to accomplish, viewing you guys as a better channel partner to maybe accomplish a specific piece of that. Mm-hmm. I'd love your thoughts around, because you're right now at the early stages of thinking through doing this, what is the vision for how that grows and sustains itself on its own?
Yeah. So, the funding side is definitely going to be one of our challenges. It is for any non-for-profit, right? In a sense of one of our opportunities that we're looking to do is start running different events. We have a Naptown golf outing we just started this year, and we do a couple other events throughout the year, but we really want to focus on, we never really had a medium or a reason to run an event, right? We never really had this all funds are going to, this non-for-profit or, to the Naptown Foundation. And so I think for us, one of the first things we're going to need to do is write down kind of what our goals and our initiatives are for this not-for-profit. And one of the things we're working on, Peter kind of alluded to, was there's a thing out there called the National Fitness Campaign. So it started out in San Francisco as the idea of those outdoor gyms that have pull-up bars everywhere and just a fitness course type idea.
Yeah.
But they've redeveloped this about 2 years ago for the 21st century. So it's much more... the word's looking
it's just cool. Modern. Yeah, it's
much
cool.
more modern.
And I'm excited.
So it's an outdoor fitness park. And, the idea is they travel around to different cities and build these fitness parks in different cities. So that's one of our first initiatives, is to kind of get connected with them and see if we can get a fitness park here in Indianapolis. And then what we'll do is support that fitness park and then run activations on, the weekends or the case may be, and maintain that fitness park as the years go on. So that's one of our goals with that not-for-profit.
Yeah, I think we're just going to start with defining what we want to do, have 3 to 5 core objectives. Once we have those core objectives, then we can seek out certain partners for certain things. Okay, we want to help fund a park, an adult park that has these fitness equipment in it. So then we can go to a certain partner and say, this is what we're trying to raise money for. Or, hey, we want to go to a park and run some obesity education. Or we want to take people to a grocery store. And our nutrition person is going to be at that grocery store, and we're going to walk you around a grocery store. But we need to pay that person to be there for those few hours. Right. So certain objectives need to be really defined well. And then so when we go look for seeking funds, the people that are looking to invest in us, we need them to know what
they're funding. Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things as well is, the whole idea of starting not-for-profit. If you would have asked me 3 years ago, if that was even a thought process, the answer would have been hell no, just because we had so many other things to figure out. But that's the idea of making sure that, you have your business running itself, essentially, to an extent.
Yeah.
To where you can then pull yourself away from some of the day-to-day responsibilities, and you train others, teach others to do what you were doing, make them better than you. And that allows you and opens you up for other opportunities to go out and create a legacy, I guess you would say. The one thing that is super important to me is, Naptown Fitness is a business, and it's our livelihood and what makes us, our money to live the lives we want. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we have something else to really kind of hold our heads up to say, hey, this is what we created in the city, and this is the change and the impact we're still seeing from, 30 years ago, or from 30 years from now, I should say, that's still here and still making a positive impact. And I think a not-for-profit could certainly do that.
All right. I think I have you guys for about 10 more minutes. I want to switch gears yet again. So talk a little bit about, you guys have classes that kick off at 5:30 in the morning. Your last classes probably run at 7-ish at night. Is that about right?
Yeah. 8:15 is our latest yoga class.
8:15. And I know you guys aren't necessarily in the classes day to day as much nowadays as you were when you first started. But my suspicion is, with multiple locations, classes that are literally all throughout the day, 40 employees, your schedules are a bit hectic. First, just confirm or deny that. I mean, I'm assuming,
yes,
I'm assuming you guys are like, still putting in stupid numbers of hours and trying to grow and support your team and all those things. So one of the things that's really interesting to me personally, but I'm sure to many listeners as well, is like, how do you balance your personal health goals, whether that's just, eating right? Like, one of my challenges, I do a ton of sales, which means I'm always eating out. I'm I might get 2, maybe 3 home cooked meals a week, like period. That includes breakfast, lunch, dinner. So like I'm literally always eating out, which makes life difficult, as well as obviously I have fitness goals and stuff like that. And you guys suffer with this too. I don't even have the personal pressure that you guys have to have of, obviously you work in a club. So if you show up every day looking like me, it's not going to be.
You look great, Mike.
Yeah. It's not going to be a good reflection on Naptown, right? So I'm sure there's also a lot of pressure there. How do you guys handle that? Like whether it's techniques for where you find time to either Jared, you and I were exploring some new fitness tech that you're playing around with right now to better understand sleep cycles and steps and stuff like that, or whether it's nutrition or finding time to work out. Like, what are some of the strategies that you guys have found successful to be able to take care of yourselves while you're aggressively growing a business?
Yeah, one of the underlying definitions of CrossFit is that you should consistently be learning and playing new sports and trying new things. And something that Jared has done our entire lives is he's always tinkering with himself as his own test subject. He has tried so many different, again, I hate to use the word, but diets, but he uses them himself. He doesn't go out and do different things. And that's trickled down to me. I don't just CrossFit. I go through cycles. Sometimes I like to lift weights more. Sometimes I just focus on yoga. I've seen Jared, we did a 40-day yoga challenge recently. We go into a conference and we try to apply what we learned to ourselves, so that if I'm going to talk to other people about it, I want to say, yeah, I've tried this.
It's a firsthand experience.
Firsthand experience. I just can't see it any other way. So if I'm talking to someone, they can't tell me that they've tried something, it's really hard for me to believe that. I've gone through intermittent fasting a lot recently. And I find that when I really focus on it for 12, if I don't eat from 8 p.m. till 10 a.m. the next day, so about a 14-hour fast, I really do feel great and I feel focused. But I haven't been able to sustain that part of my lifestyle yet. And is it the right lifestyle? I have no idea. But continuing to tinker with that and always be on the forefront of what might be next or what was done in the paleo era, we're messing with all of that all the time. And for me, that's what keeps me ticking. And that's what keeps me loving CrossFit. That's what keeps me loving Naptown Fitness and doing different things in there.
Yeah, for me, Google Calendar is the lifesaver. I was just writing down a couple notes because it's funny being in the fitness space and, your whole mindfulness and your balance and trying to figure all that out. Like, technology is a huge lifesaver for all that. You mentioned the Oura Ring is what I use currently to, track my sleep cycles and then figure out my heart rate variability, which HRV is the kind of underlying factor of how ready you are for that day. And that goes into many different factors of what your activity level was the day before, how well you slept the night before. It all tracks the distance between each heartbeat. And as that heartbeat gets longer, that means you're tired and you're under rested. So you need to rest a little bit more. So there's days where I'm, if it tells me I'm at a 60, I'm not even gonna work out that day. I might go take a yoga class. I might go focus on some mindfulness, which, using like Headspace is a good app that I use personally for meditation. I try to do 1 3 to 5 minute, just mindfulness type exercise of just kind of clearing my mind once a day. But I definitely focus on 3 legit sessions a week is my goal of 15 minutes of, sitting there. We actually have meditation classes within our Practice Indie yoga brand, which is super helpful. Right now I'm playing with the idea of blood work to see what my fitness is at. So I'm using a company called Inside Tracker that I'm going to use and get some blood work done, send that in and see where I, measure up versus, the millions of other people they have, and have data on to see what kind of food, nutrients I'm missing, what kind of minerals I'm missing, what kind of food I should be eating. So as Peter mentioned, I'm always kind of playing with different ways to optimize myself. And, a lot of that really comes down to just us as kids always, being out there playing, sports and doing fitness, to where without that balance, probably wouldn't be a good person. So
yeah, you've done triathlons, you've done marathons, we've done cryotherapy, we've done float tanks, we've done inversion tables, what are those called? The
inversion tables.
Yeah. If it's out there, we've tried it and tinkered with it in some way, shape, or form, because people are asking us those questions. People look at us as to be their fitness professionals. And if we haven't tried it, I can't speak on it.
Right.
But from a productivity side of me getting things done, if it's on my calendar, Peter can attest to this. If it's on my calendar, I'm there. If it's not on my calendar, I'm not there. So I think our employees are starting to get to know that a little bit more. Peter and I have done a phenomenal job, better job of sharing calendars to the point where I can see what he's doing. But yeah, like, so if I know I want to work out that day, I'm putting noon to 1 on my calendar, and it's yoga. You know, if I want to do yoga that day, noon to 1, I'm doing yoga. If I need to do a CrossFit class, 4 to 5 blocked off in my calendar, and I make sure I go to it.
How do you say no to the things that crop up that want to take that space away from you?
Very softly, I'll just say no. It depends on the situation. If it's something that is like time sensitive and needs to get done, I'll then sometimes, I hate to say it, but substitute that in and do that. But for the most part, I stick to that calendar and to that schedule and just say no to it. Not very often do we really have meetings or things thrown at it. I shouldn't say that. I guess we often have issues come up. So yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question and kind of backtrack everything I just said, that happens quite a bit now that I think about it, to where, you know, it's got to get this email out instead of going to a CrossFit class. And I think he's better at it than I am, in the sense of being able to walk away from not responsibilities, but from my phone, from emails, from the internet. I struggle with that a lot, and something I'm still working on.
My wife recently brought up the analogy that most of us all know is when you're on an airplane and they're going through the safety procedures and they say the oxygen masks come down, right? What's the first thing they say? Put yours on before you put your kids on. And it's a philosophy that her and I live by. If we don't take care of ourselves, we won't be there to take care of our family in the long run. And if I'm not happy and feeling good about myself, then how can I go out and give that love and that care to other people? So we both know it. Jared knows it about me. I know it about him. If I'm not taking yoga or doing CrossFit or doing some type of fitness, then my own personal health starts to deteriorate within about 72 hours. I feel shitty. I feel sluggish. I don't sleep well. And so I put my own oxygen mask on first, and I'm very quick to put my phone down and say, I have 30 minutes, make the best out of it. I have a lot of clients now, picking up personal training clients again, which I didn't do for a long time because I want to help and make a change in people's lives. And what we're finding, it's like, so you only have 30 minutes to carve out. You need to be able to call somebody or a mentor or have the access to a facility for 30 minutes. Because again, if I'm not there to put my own oxygen mask on, I won't be there for everyone. I love my family, my loved ones, the people around me. So I have to do that. It's priority.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on. You guys are growing a fantastic business. Your team is amazing. I know more than just you guys at Naptown. You guys have built something truly awesome. Definitely making an impact here in Indy. You've made a huge impact in our employees' lives here. There's maybe not as many as we might hope, but there's a strong number of people here in our business who rely on you guys every day and what you've built. It's you should be super proud of what you've done. If people want to get a hold of you two individually or learn more about Naptown, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can go to naptownfitness.com, and we have, an FAQ on there. We have, actually one thing I always invite people to do if you're interested is we have a thing called a no sweat intro. So no sweat intro is just a 15-minute consultation at either space, whether it be at our Broad Ripple location or downtown, just to learn a little bit more about our programs, whether it be yoga, Swift, CrossFit, nutrition, whatever the case may be. Those are free. Come in and learn a little bit more from that aspect. You can follow us on all the social medias. I'm going to get all of our tags and handles wrong, but Naptown Fitness, if you search that, you'll definitely find us. We have our individual programs also have different accounts. Me personally, you can follow me on Instagram, Byczko. But other than that,
yeah, we don't use Twitter.
Too few letters.
We figured that we should focus on the ones that we're good at. And I am at PAlphaB on Instagram. A lot of pictures of my kids. That's about it.
Yeah, and then business-wise, you can see us on Facebook as well. Facebook, Instagram. That's about it.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
If you're thinking of launching a SaaS product, Startup Competitors can provide data on your closest competitors, survey potential users, or provide other product validation services. Learn more at startupcompetitors.com.